Hello and welcome to a new Vanguard Zero video. As you can probably tell off screen, I quickly got the new Valentine's Day Corrin home screen skin, because why not? I already had Corrin on my home screen as the default anyway, so I may as well get the new version, right? But that's not what today's video is about. Today's video is about taking a quick look at my Dark Irregulars deck. So we're just gonna jump right in with that. So yes, I've finally gotten around to actually building a pretty good Dark Irregulars deck. Not a great one. I'm still a little bit off of what I really need, but it's good enough for now to get some fairly consistent wins. So this is what I'm running. Is it the best setup in the world? I don't necessarily think so, but it's one that gives me a lot of options, and I'll show you what the strategy is to do with it in a sec. So that's what we're going to do this video. We're just going to kind of talk about what this deck does, and then later on, maybe in a future video or something, I will really show it off once I've kind of gone to the point where it's where I want it to be, basically. So first of all, I spent my Sentinel medals, because you need a play set of perfect guards if you want to run any deck. Just straight up. Immediately. In fact, actually, there's something else I want to do first before we fully get into this deck. So excuse me for a sec. Basically, I want to talk about these rate up manners, because that's what I've been using to build this Dark Irregular deck, and I don't know how many people have been pulling any rate up packs, but however many that amount is, it's not enough, because these these pickup ganches even, these are really good. So I've still got 50 packs left, and I've got 900 gems and everything, and I'm not going to open any packs right now, but I managed to get a lot of the cards I need for this Dark Irregular deck just by pulling a surprisingly small amount of packs. And so, if you're someone who wants a really good deck right now, and is willing to spend some packs right now, I would genuinely recommend either picking Dark Irregulars or Dimension Police, and just opening a bunch of the rate up pickup gacha packs for these two clans. Because both of these clans are really good. Right, they're not like top tier, they're not Kagero, but like, if you want a good budget deck, these pickups are going to make it a lot easier to build a budget deck. And Enigman, for example, Enigman is a very popular deck because it's pretty good, and it's not the most expensive deck in the world, it's fairly cheap. And combine that with the pickup gacha, you kind of can't go wrong. And so that's what I would recommend. If you're someone who just wants to spend packs now, but you don't know what to spend them on, then I would say right now, spend them on this gacha, the Dimension Police pickup. Now, I went for Dark Irregulars, and the rest of this video will be talking about Dark Irregulars, don't worry. Now, Pale Moon and Bermuda, I'm sure you can get wins with these two clans. I'm sure they're fine, but they're not the ones I'd personally recommend. I'd recommend Dimension Police and Dark Irregulars. But that's just me. So, yeah, okay, yeah, let's go back and talk about this Dark Irregulars deck I'm running. Because, again, if you're wanting a budget deck right now, those pickup ganches are going to help you a lot. Because, yes, I know, Blau is still the best budget deck on the market, but Nova Grapplers don't have a rate up. At least not its own banner dedicated to it being rated up. So, I would say go for Dimension Police if you want a budget deck right now. But again, that's just me. Of course, you kind of have to figure this stuff out for yourself and kind of get a feel for it. But okay, so let's look at this Dark Irregulars deck. So yeah, most of this I've gotten from the rate up gacha. So immediately you can see, like, there's a few triple rares there at the bottom. I did craft one of my Idle Roses, and we'll talk about that in more detail later. But like, before the rate up gacha, I had barely any cards I needed, and now I have almost all of them. So, okay, yeah, I've got my perfect guards. I managed to pull 2 of them in a pack, and exchanged them for 2 Sentinel medals. So I do still have a Sentinel medal left for my Angel Feathers, and I think that if I keep playing, I should have enough Sentinel medals saved up by the time Angel Feathers are released that I can just get those perfect guards for Angel Feathers immediately anyway. Because for anyone who's new here, I'm also trying to save, like, the big goal of this series, the thing we're really working up to right now at this moment, is making sure that the second Angel Feathers drop in the Limit Break set that's coming up soon the moment that dropped, I want to have like a really good, like full playset of no seals, everything kind of deck, right? And that's my plan. That's the thing I've been saving up for literally the second it was announced to happen in the Japanese version, and I'm just still saving up for that to happen in the English version. So that's the real big thing we're saving up for. That's why I still have 50 packs saved, and why I'm refusing to spend those on this Dark Irregulars deck. So, okay, let's talk about this deck some more. So we got the Perfect Guards, and we still got one Sentinel Medal left. That's good. So you've also got Alluring Succubus and Flirtatious Succubus. These two cards allow you to soul charge one when you place them. Same thing goes for our Forerunner. You can use the Forerunner to soul charge one. So immediately we're getting a lot of soul here, and that's to be expected, right? That's the big goal of this deck. Basically, you're soul charging as much as possible early game so that you can take advantage of that soul late game. And the deck I've gone through right now doesn't actually specifically rely on one strategy. Instead, it's focusing on getting as much of a soul as possible so that you can use whichever strategy you want later on. And we'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a sec. So, first of all, you've got Grin the Ripper, which is a card I'm half and half on, right? Because it's really good. You can counterblast 2 to retire a grade 2 or less rare guard. That's basically Blaster Blade's ability, right? So that's a really good ability to have. Unfortunately, it does waste your counterblasts, and we'll talk about why that's important in a sec. So, pretty good card, but I'm not running a playset because of that. You've got Siga, who is your generic, 10k, grade 2, every clan has a version of it. But Siga is actually a lot better than most clans' version of that card, for, again, a reason we'll get to later. See, a lot of these grade 2 and 1 cards here are fairly basic and don't make much sense until you reveal what the grade 3s do. So, the standout grade 1 and 2 cards are Amon. So, the grade 1 Amon has 6k damage, but he gets an extra 3000 when you have 6 or more cards in your soul. So, as you can tell, this deck is all about building soul, being able to have a 9k boost by building up that soul. That's fantastic, and that's why this grade 1 card, this grade 1 common, is actually one of the best cards in the deck, because 9k boost, that's good. That's really good, actually. And you've also got here the grade 2 Amon, who is slightly worse. He's still very good, even though he has the exact same effect, because of course he loses that boost in favor of for intercept. Now, he's still good, don't get me wrong, but the boost the grade 1 Amon gets with 9k damage is insane. And yes, getting 12k for a grade 2 is still very, very good, and it's why I'm running a playset of him. He is still very good. He's just not quite as good as the grade 1 one, but I would still recommend running a playset of him personally anyway. But that's just me. So, this is where the deck gets really interesting, because each of these grade 3s basically run around their own different strategy. And basically what you're doing is you're setting up as good a field and as good a setup as possible with the grade 1s and 2s, so that when you get around to writing a grade 3, you can kind of just pick and choose what strategy you want to go for. And the strategies go thusly. So, Death Anchor, when you place him at the beginning of your main phase, you can soul charge to get 2000 at a turn. That's pretty good, that's 13k, that's really good. And you're still continuing to soul charge. This is where this card gets insane, though. If your damage zone has 5 cards in it, it says or more, but realistically, if you have more, you've lost. But if you have 5 cards in your damage zone, you can put your damage zone in your soul to gain 10,000 power plus 1 crit until the end of turn. And then at the end of that turn, you put the top 5 cards of your deck into your damage zone. This effect, I say it a lot, but this effect truly is insane. This one is a game ender. If you can pull this effect off successfully, you've won the game. Like, just straight up. But that's the thing, it's very high risk, high reward. You have to intentionally let your opponent get you to exactly 5 damage. No more, no less. Which is where those perfect guards are going to come in. Which is what I really like, because this Death Anchor card makes it so that the perfect guards have a bit more use than just, they stop you from losing, obviously. But you actually want to try and hope that you have the perfect guards exactly when you need them. Because if you have too many, for example, and you're at 3 damage and they crit you, then you don't actually want to block that with a perfect guard because that stops you from being able to use Death Anchor, for example. And that's really interesting. And of course, you do want to hold perfect guards so that you can stay at 5 damage once you've got that. It's basically really interesting stuff, right? And then there's Edelrose. Edelrose, just like the rest of these grade 3s, all of these grade 3s have completely different strategies to each other. So Edelrose is what Werewolf Seeger kind of ties into. These two cards tie in together a lot. And so basically you can Counterblast to when Werewolf Seeger is in your soul to get 5,000 damage plus 1 crit. Now, the problem is, if you can't use this ability, Edelrose is really, really underpowered. So it's very heavily relies on you being able to actually use this ability. But getting that extra crit and the extra 5,000 power, that turns her from an okay grade 3 to a really good grade 3. And when she's in your hand, you can return it to your deck to get Werewolf Seeger. And that effect's pretty good too, because Werewolf Seeger is a pretty good card, right? Like 10k grade 2, being able to guarantee one of those in your hand. Like if you, for example, if you're the kind of person who, no matter how many times they mulligan, they still find their hand completely full of grade 3s, you're alleviating that. You're getting rid of one of those grade 3s to get a pretty good grade 2. So that's a really useful effect in and of itself, and that's also why you want to be having her as the heal trigger, because you can put her back in your deck, which makes it more likely for you to be able to run, to actually get the heal trigger you need, right? Rather than just getting a handful of grade 3s who are all heal triggers, and you're like, well, shit, I've wasted my heal triggers. So there's that. Continuing on with the every grade 3 kind of has its own completely separate strategy. Here's Amon. And you'll notice that, again, in a lot of decks and stuff, like for example in my Spike Brothers deck, a lot of the grade 3 cards revolve around running on the rare guards whilst you have one grade 3 on the Vanguard. Like for example in my Spike Bros, they want you to be having Seafried on the Vanguard, and then having Skydiver and Juggernaut on the rare guards, and they kind of work in tandem with each other. What I've noticed with my Dark Irregulars is that it's the opposite of that. They're all kind of fighting for who gets to be the Vanguard, but that gives you, again, that gives you a lot of options because all of them are really powerful, and so depending on how your first few turns go, you can kind of pick and choose which strategy you want to go for, which I think makes them a fairly unique deck. You're not just going for the exact same end game every single time, you're kind of choosing the grade 3 that fits your playstyle, unless you get really shitty draws and you just kind of have to work with what you've got. Which is why Amon is probably the best card in the deck in my opinion, even though he's only a double rare. Because he's the most versatile, or at the very least he's the most consistent. He has a really good game-winning strategy tied to him that's actually fairly easy and consistent to pull off. Basically, during your turn, this unit gets 10,000 for each card in your soul. You'll already realize, oh yeah, Dark Irregulars, that's the clan that builds the soul. You have so many cards and so many abilities that specifically rely on you building a soul, and he already starts with 11k power. So getting 1,000 on top of that for each card in your soul, that's ridiculous. But you can also counterblast and put a rare guard, put a card from your rare guard circle into your soul to retire one of your opponent's rare guards at random. Now the at random part is definitely the card, it's definitely the thing that makes this go from the best card in the deck to slightly worse best card in the deck. I feel like if it wasn't at random, he'd be just like actually broken. But still, even at random with priority to the back row, even that's still really good. Right, that's still gonna put you in a lot of good positions. And yeah, you basically you put him out, you soul charge as much as possible, and then you put these two on the rare guards, and then you boost with this guy, and you've basically got so much power that they just can't do anything about it. Basically, that's what you really want to be doing, and of course, you want to be getting rid of their rare guards by using your ability anyway, right? And that's why you're running draw triggers, because this deck is a very draw-intensive one. For example, you're retiring, you're putting one of your rare guards into the soul. That's quite expensive, you know, like getting rid of your rare guards, which is why you want draw triggers, so that you can consistently have cards. And of course, you know, if you have Eda Rose in your hand, then you can use her to get a Werewolf Seeger and get him out on the field. And then, boom, you can do this. So there we go. There is actually some synergy and some tandem in this deck anyway. So now you've got Demon Eater. And Demon Eater is an interesting one. So she has the fairly basic effect of you can Soul Charge, and this unit gets 2,000 till the end of turn. Pretty basic effect, right? But then you can also Counter Blast, Mega Blast even. You can Mega Blast to retire all of your opponent's rare guards. So this is basically Amon on steroids. But the problem is, it's a lot more difficult to use. So Gwyn the Ripper, right? Gwyn the Ripper is good, but you're counterblasting to use it. And you don't want to do that because you want to be saving the counterblast for Demon Eater or Eda Rose, is the thing. So that's kind of the thing. The problem with having to pick and choose the strategy you want to go with is it means you are giving up some good effects, unfortunately. I feel like what they really need is a consistent counter charge, and there might be a card that I have that I'm just not running that will give me that. I don't know, actually. Again, I'm still tightening up and tweaking this deck as things go, just to kind of see. And last off, we're ending with Still Vampire. So before I get into what he actually does, I will say I don't want to run him. See, my plan is to have a 4th Eda Rose and to have her be the 4 heal triggers. Unfortunately, I was running a 3rd Demon Eater to replace that Eda Rose, because Demon Eater is a good enough card to replace the 4th Eda Rose with. You know, not great, but better than Still Vampire. The problem is, and the reason I switched them out, is because I wanted to keep Eda Rose on heal triggers. But the triggers don't cut evenly, because you need to have every unit of that type be that trigger. So you can't just have one Demon Eater be a heal and the others be draws. You have to have them cut cleanly. And so there was no other way of keeping Eda Rose as my heal trigger without replacing Demon Eater with Still Vampire, unfortunately. So that's kind of another drawback that this deck currently has. But again, Eda Rose being able to return her back to the deck is really good because that works with the heal triggers really nicely, kind of like Maximum Juggernaut. And so that's why I've done that. I don't want to, but whatever. And Still Vampire, he's not a bad card. I just don't personally find his effect it's not useful enough to be worth how difficult it is to pull off. So, okay, what is his effect? Well, his first effect, once again, is just Soul Charge and he gets 2,000. Pretty basic stuff, right? But then you can also Mega Blast to choose one of your opponent's rare guards and put it on their Vanguard circle. And then on that, and the opponent's next turn, they can ride something from their soul. This is kind of ridiculous, and it could definitely turn a game around, you know? You could put their Forerunner on their Vanguard circle, hypothetically. But the problem is, it's so difficult to pull that off in a way that works enough. Because, okay, so you're Mega Blasting, which means you're immediately probably going to want to give up Gwyn the Ripper's ability, right? And you're going to want to give up, you know, Eda Rose's ability, so on and so forth, right? You're giving up a lot to save up for the chance, for the possibility of being able to use this effect, right? A Mega Blast is something you're only realistically going to use once per game. And so your whole strategy just turns to, okay, my entire strategy is saving up so I can use this Mega Blast. And it is a good Mega Blast. Being able to put a rare guard on their Vanguard circle for one turn is sick. You know, you could get rid of one of their intercepts and make their Vanguard less powerful in one single move. That's really, really good. But I don't think it's quite good enough for how much it costs. Because it's helpful and it can turn a game around, but it's very, very situational based on what kind of field your opponent has. And if your opponent can tough it out and survive it, which chances are they probably will be able to tough it out and survive it, then the effect is basically undone again immediately their next turn, because they can just ride what originally was their Vanguard over the rare guard that you put on top. So you're fucked, basically. You're saving up to use this, and then they survive it, and then you're fucked. So it's a very high risk, high reward card. I have it there anyway, just to have it as the heal trigger. But Demon Eater, in my opinion, is better because she just gets rid of your rare guards. And that's a permanent effect. Once you've used that, that's it. They're fucked. They have to replace those rare cards by just drawing cards and manually replacing them. So, like, that's a much better effect in my opinion. But again, that's just me. That is just me. So, I don't know. Again, I think it's worth having the Steel Vampire because it means that I can have Edelrosen on the heal triggers. But yeah, that's currently my Dark Irregulars deck. I know there's a lot of cards I'm not running. Like, for example, when your card is put into your soldier in your main phase, it gets 3,000. That's alright. That's not awful. When this unit boosts a Vanguard and your sword has 6 or more cards, it gets 4,000. So that's basically just a slightly worse version of Amon, in my opinion. Because it's a little less versatile. And then you've got this card, which when placed, you can counterblast 2 to retire one of your opponent's rare cards. That's again really good. That's basically just grade 1 version of Grin the Reaper. But that's the thing, I don't want to be using my counterblasts if possible. You know, you got more succubuses. I am considering getting rid of my Grins for Seragiel, because Seragiel does seem like a very good card. So we'll see. We'll see. Because I do have 4 copies of that, so I could use it, hypothetically. But again, that's the thing. I'm just using this deck for now, just to see what works for me. This one's alright, you know, when your rare guards place Soul Charge. So that's a very basic Soul Charge. There you go. Beelzebub, I was actively told not to run. So if your Soul has 6 or more cards, it gets 1,000. And then when he attacks, if your Soul has 6 or more cards, counterblast 2 to have 2 of your rare guards get 3,000. That's not awful, but it's just not quite as good as Amon, in my opinion, you know? And then you have this common, when his unit's boosted, it gets 3,000. That's a very, 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 very basic card. You know, that's just the, hey, if you have no other Dark Irregular grade 3s, you may as well run him, basically. So, you know, I do think the deck needs a bit of tweaking. In fact, I am very heavily considering just getting rid of Gwyn for Seragiel, because Seragiel seems like the better card to me, personally. Yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to do that. Maybe that's a dumb move, but that's the thing. This deck is currently under construction, right? That's the thing. And so I can kind of just decide how it works as it goes. So that's probably going to be where I end it today, because I want to upload tomorrow a follow-up to this, where I show the deck in action in some actual card fights. And I'll have some more time to actually play around with it in between those 2 recordings to really get a feel for the deck, and also explain a bit more of the context as to why I built the deck in the first place, because there's something happening soon that you're going to want to pay attention to that ties into why I built this deck in the first place. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. So that's my Dark Irregulars deck as it currently is. I'll see you later with some more Vanguard Zero. Be sure to subscribe and like if you like this kind of stuff and want to see more and keep updated and stuff. And I do have a Discord in the comments if you want to join that and talk about Vanguard Zero with me and like 80 other people. I genuinely could not believe my Discord server has over 80 people in it. So yeah, I'll see you later with more Vanguard Zero. And yeah, see you later.